Last year, a man walked into my office carrying a paper bag. Inside that bag were 7 prescription bottles. He lined them up on my desk one by one without saying a word. Then he looked at me and said, "I take all of these every morning. My pressure is still high. I don't know what else to do." He was 64 years old, a retired firefighter, physically active his entire life. No smoking, no excessive drinking, no history of neglecting his health. He had done everything his physicians had asked of him for over a decade, and he was sitting across from me exhausted, medicated, and running out of answers. What nobody had ever taken the time to tell him, through all those years and all those appointments and all those prescriptions, was that the most powerful tools available for his blood pressure were not in a pharmacy. They were in his kitchen. They had been there the whole time. My name is Dr. James Harlow. I have spent over 25 years practicing internal medicine and cardiology, and I am making this video because that man's story is not unusual. I hear versions of it every single week, and the information I am about to share with you is the conversation that should have happened years earlier, for him and for millions of people just like him. Before I give you the 5 strategies, I need you to understand something about what is actually happening inside your arteries after the age of 60. Because if you understand the mechanism, the solutions will make complete sense. If you do not, you will try these things half-heartedly and wonder why they are not working. Think of your blood vessels the way you would think of a garden hose that has been left outdoors for many years. When it was new, it was flexible. It could handle high pressure without straining. It stretched and absorbed the force of the water moving through it. But after years of sun and cold and pressure, the rubber starts to stiffen. It becomes rigid, and a rigid hose develops problems that a flexible one never would. Cracks, resistance, the inability to handle the same demands it once managed effortlessly. That is aging arterial physiology in plain language. But here is what makes the situation more specific and more addressable than most people realize. The primary driver of that arterial stiffening is not simply age. It is chronic, low-grade inflammation in the walls of the blood vessels themselves. Silent inflammation. The kind that produces no fever, no pain, no obvious symptom, but that works day after day, year after year, gradually thickening and hardening the vessel walls until your heart must generate significantly more pressure just to push blood through the system. And what drives that inflammation more than almost any other single factor in daily life? What you eat 3 times a day. Every meal is either reducing that inflammatory burden or adding to it. Most people have never been told this clearly. And that is the gap this video exists to close. These 5 strategies are not replacements for your medications. I want to be explicit about that. If your physician has prescribed blood pressure medication, those prescriptions exist for important reasons and should not be altered without direct medical guidance. What I am giving you today are 5 evidence-based tools that work alongside your current care. Tools that address the underlying inflammation driving your arterial stiffness in ways that prescriptions alone cannot. Let us begin. Strategy 1. Eat your vegetables first, every meal, without exception. I recognize that this sounds almost insultingly simple. Stay with me. When you sit down to eat and begin with bread, rice, pasta, or potatoes, the refined carbohydrates from those foods enter your bloodstream rapidly, producing a sharp spike in blood glucose. Your body responds to that spike by releasing a surge of insulin, the hormone responsible for clearing glucose from the blood. Here is what that insulin surge does to your blood pressure. It causes your blood vessels to constrict, directly, measurably. In the minutes following a carbohydrate-heavy meal, your blood pressure rises as your vasculature tightens in response to the insulin your body has just flooded into circulation. This happens 3 times a day, every day, largely invisibly and largely unnecessarily. When you eat vegetables first, the fiber they contain forms a physical matrix in your stomach that dramatically slows the absorption of carbohydrates from everything you eat afterward. The glucose enters your bloodstream gradually rather than in a sudden rush. Your insulin response is muted. The vascular constriction is reduced. Same food, same portions, same everything, just a different sequence. I have had patients make this single change with no other modifications. Same meals, same medications, same activity level, and returned 2 weeks later with measurably lower post-meal blood pressure readings. One patient, a 71-year-old retired teacher, described it as the easiest health change she had ever made. She was not wrong. Tonight at dinner, vegetables first, then protein, then carbohydrates last. Practice this until it becomes automatic. The mechanism is real and the cost is zero. Strategy 2. Apple cider vinegar. 1 to 2 tablespoons in water with every meal. Healthy skepticism is appropriate here and I welcome it. So let me give you the mechanism rather than asking you to take this on faith. The active compound in apple cider vinegar is acetic acid. Acetic acid does 2 specific things relevant to blood pressure. First, it improves insulin sensitivity, meaning your cells become more responsive to insulin, and your body needs to release less of it to manage the same glucose load. Less insulin in circulation means less vascular constriction after meals. You are addressing the same mechanism from strategy 1 through a complementary pathway. Second, acetic acid stimulates the production of nitric oxide in the walls of your blood vessels. Nitric oxide is your body's endogenous vasodilator, the molecule that signals your arteries to relax and open. An entire class of cardiovascular medications attempts to replicate this effect pharmacologically. Acetic acid does it naturally, at the cost of a few cents per day. 1 to 2 tablespoons diluted in at least 8 ounces of water. Always diluted. Undiluted vinegar can damage tooth enamel and irritate the esophagus. Use a straw when possible. If you have a history of acid reflux or gastric ulcers, discuss this with your physician before starting. For most adults over 60 with no such history, this is among the simplest, safest additions available. 1 glass with each meal. Give it 3 weeks before evaluating results. Have you ever tried apple cider vinegar, or is the taste keeping you away? Let me know in the comments. Strategy 3. A small handful of walnuts 30 minutes before bed. This one addresses something that most people, and genuinely many physicians, are not monitoring carefully enough. For a healthy cardiovascular system, blood pressure follows a predictable daily rhythm. It rises in the morning as the body activates, remains elevated through the active day, and drops meaningfully during sleep to give the heart and vasculature a genuine period of rest and recovery. In a significant proportion of adults over 60, this nocturnal drop does not occur as it should. Blood pressure remains elevated, or in some cases actually spikes, during sleep. You are lying completely still, completely unaware, while your heart works overtime and your arteries remain under sustained pressure. You wake up tired without understanding why. Your morning readings may look acceptable, masking a serious problem occurring every single night for hours. This pattern, called nocturnal hypertension, is associated with substantially elevated risk of stroke and cardiac events, and it is largely invisible without specific monitoring. Walnuts address this through 3 complementary mechanisms. They are among the richest plant sources of alpha-linolenic acid, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid with well-documented anti-inflammatory effects on vascular tissue. They contain melatonin, which supports the body's natural circadian pressure drop during sleep, and they are a meaningful source of L-arginine, a precursor to nitric oxide, again that critical vasodilating molecule. Approximately 30 grams, roughly 14 walnut halves, eaten 30 minutes before sleep. This is a genuine, specific, repeatable recommendation with a clear biological rationale. Write it down. Strategy 4. 3 cups of hibiscus tea daily. You may know this flower by other names: sorrel, carcade, red tea. It produces a deep crimson brew with a tart, slightly cranberry-like flavor. It has been used medicinally across Africa, Latin America, and the Middle East for centuries. And modern cardiology has now produced a substantial body of research explaining precisely why those traditions were correct. Hibiscus flowers contain compounds called anthocyanins and hibiscus acids that act on your cardiovascular system in a manner strikingly similar to a class of prescription medications called ACE inhibitors, among the most commonly prescribed blood pressure drugs in the world. ACE inhibitors work by blocking an enzyme that causes blood vessels to constrict, allowing them to remain open and relaxed. Hibiscus exerts the same effect through its active compounds, without the persistent dry cough that causes many patients to discontinue the medication. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that daily hibiscus tea consumption reduced systolic blood pressure by an average of 7 points in adults with mildly elevated readings. 7 points is a clinically significant reduction. That is a number that changes prescribing decisions. 3 cups daily, morning, midday, and evening. Hot or cold, both are equally effective. Minimal or no added sugar, because sugar directly counteracts the anti-inflammatory benefit you are seeking. A small amount of honey is acceptable. If you are already taking an ACE inhibitor medication, speak with your physician before adding regular hibiscus tea, as the combination can produce an additive effect that pushes pressure lower than intended. For most people, however, this is a genuinely pleasurable daily habit with measurable cardiovascular benefit. Strategy 5. Replace the oils in your kitchen. This is the strategy I want you to take most seriously, and it is also the one that may require the most unlearning. Open your kitchen cabinet right now and look at what you are cooking with. If you see canola oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, or corn oil, you are looking at the primary dietary driver of chronic vascular inflammation in the modern Western diet. These refined seed oils are extremely high in omega-6 fatty acids. Omega-6 is not inherently harmful. Your body requires some. The problem is the ratio. For the vast majority of human history, people consumed omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids in roughly equal proportions. The modern diet, dominated by these refined oils, delivers 15 to 20 times more omega-6 than omega-3. That extreme imbalance is one of the primary biochemical drivers of the chronic systemic inflammation that stiffens your arteries year after year. There is a second problem specific to cooking. These oils are chemically unstable at elevated temperatures. When you heat them to standard cooking temperature, they oxidize. They break down into compounds including aldehydes that are directly toxic to the endothelial cells lining your blood vessel walls. Your food looks and tastes completely normal. The damage to your vasculature is invisible, and it accumulates with every meal prepared in these oils. The replacement is straightforward. For anything that does not require very high heat, dressings, light sautéing, drizzling over vegetables, or finished dishes, use extra virgin olive oil. You don't need to pour it heavily. A small amount of quality olive oil does the work of twice the amount of cheap seed oil. The research supporting olive oil's cardiovascular benefits spans decades and multiple independent research populations without meaningful controversy. Its primary active compound, oleocanthal, is a natural anti-inflammatory agent. Its monounsaturated fat profile actively supports healthy vascular function. For higher heat cooking, use real butter, not margarine, which is manufactured from the same refined seed oils you are replacing. Genuine butter from quality sources is a significantly better choice for your cardiovascular system than any refined vegetable oil, despite what many of us were told with great confidence 20 or 30 years ago. The science has moved forward. The guidance should move with it. You do not need to discard what is currently in your cabinet. Simply stop repurchasing it. When your current supply runs out, replace it with extra virgin olive oil. That single substitution, maintained consistently over 3 to 6 months, produces measurable changes in inflammatory markers, and by extension in blood pressure. Let me bring all 5 together clearly because I want you to leave this video with something you can act on tonight rather than a list that fades by tomorrow morning. 1. Eat vegetables before anything else at every meal. 2. 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar and water with each meal. 3. 30 grams of walnuts, about 14 halves, 30 minutes before sleep. 4. 3 cups of hibiscus tea daily, minimal sugar. 5. Replace refined seed oils with extra virgin olive oil and real butter. Every one of these strategies works through the same fundamental mechanism, reducing chronic inflammation in your blood vessel walls and improving the flexibility and responsiveness of your arterial system. 5 different approaches, all converging on the same biological target. The retired firefighter I told you about at the beginning of this video made all 5 of these changes gradually over the course of several months, in close communication with his cardiologist. At his 6-month follow-up, his physician reduced him from 7 medications to 4. His inflammatory markers had dropped significantly. His blood pressure was stable in a way it had not been in years. The first thing he said when he came back to see me was, "Why did it take this long for someone to explain this to me?" I did not have a satisfying answer. What I had was the recognition that the information existed, the research existed, and that somewhere between the laboratory and the clinic, and the patient sitting at their kitchen table, it consistently failed to arrive. You are sitting at that kitchen table right now. Pick one of these 5 strategies, just one, the one that requires the least friction to begin tonight. The vegetables first, the walnuts by the bed, checking what oil is in your cabinet. Start there. Do it consistently until it becomes invisible, until it is simply the way you eat. Then add the next one. Sustainable change does not come from attempting everything simultaneously and exhausting yourself in the first week. It comes from one small, repeated decision that eventually requires no decision at all. Your arteries are not fixed structures. They are living tissue. They respond to the conditions you create for them, consistently, over time. Give them the right conditions and they will respond. If this video gave you something useful, share it today with someone whose kitchen could benefit from this information. Subscribe to this channel. Every week I bring you evidence-based guidance on the cardiovascular and metabolic decisions that matter most for adults over 60. And leave a comment telling me which of these 5 you are starting with tonight. I read every one. I am Dr. James Harlow. Take care of your heart. I will see you next video.